Welcome everyone, Mike Bonanno from World Arts. Today we're going to be discussing wrist and forearm conditioning. You may wonder, why do I need wrist and forearm conditioning? Well, if you're a martial artist, there are a variety of reasons why you would need wrist and forearm conditioning. For example, if you're in judo, well, there are times when if you're a judo practitioner, you'll need wrist and grip strength to be able to hold on to the gi so that you can manipulate your opponent and throw them or take them down. If you're in our style, Okinawan-based Seidokan, we use a lot of toide or tuite, which is wrist manipulation. So if you had an opponent, which I don't have one with me right now, and someone strikes and I was able to block it, I can then turn and grip a hold of his wrist or forearm, manipulate it in such a way where I can then gently and effectively remove him from the situation to avoid any confrontation. Our goal as martial artists, at least in my style, is to avoid confrontation at all costs, because as Mr. Miyagi say, best block, not to be there. Anyway, so I'm going to show you all the tools that I use for my particular workout. Even if you're not a martial artist, your need for wrist strength and grip strength are important. You need them for opening doors and opening cans and bottles. And of course, if you're hanging at the edge of a cliff, you want to hang on as long as you possibly can. Of course, that's an extreme, but we martial artists typically take things to the extreme anyway. Anyway, here are the tools that I use for my particular workout, and then I'll give you an explanation of each one throughout the video. First thing I use is a band. This is a 50-pound band, and I use this for my wrist flexion and my wrist extension. Then I have a sledgehammer. I use this for my radial and ulnar deviation. I have a smaller hammer for my supination and pronation. And then I also have these. These happen to be 50-pound weights. And at the end of each set, I do a set of fireman's carries, which is basically walking, holding on as tight as I can, and walking around the dojo or gym or your room, wherever you can do your workout, to give that added fatigue to the muscle to make them grow and become stronger. And then finally, I use at the very end of the workout my gripper, because you have to work on your finger and your distal metacarpal strength. And you can use a little bar that holds the weight onto a barbell at the gym. So these are just fine to use. Or if you want, you can get yourself a more fancy one that you can add springs to get a more decent, a stronger grip, or just a simple gripper. But again, make sure that it's got enough tension. Before I show you a few of the other things that I do, I'm going to mention this, please, again. Do not do this workout to the extreme at first. Please do everything slow, lower the amount of reps, lower the amount of weight, just to feel what you'll feel like at the end of it. Because basically, if you have been to the gym for a while, you're probably only doing wrist flexions. People just do this as wrist flexions. But there's so much more. There's wrist extension. There's also radial deviation. There's ulnar deviation. There's supination and pronation. So if you've never worked those muscles out before, you could fatigue them and you can hurt them. So I please ask you to use lighter weights, lower reps, get the feel for your workout, and gradually increase. And now, I will also mention that I do like to change my workup every now and then, because it's true that if you do the same workout all the time, your muscles remember, and they don't hypertrophy as easily as they would if you mix things up and confuse the muscle bellies. So I then sometimes instead of doing the wrist flexion and extension that way, I'll get the old stick and rope, but I use a 3-inch piece of PVC. It's a bigger grip head, and it really fatigues those wrists, slow and controlled movement. This is an option. I also, sometimes I'll use these things. They're called THERABAND flex bars. THERABAND flex bars. They're great tools. This is the lightest weight one. It's very easy to manipulate. You can do flexion and extension. You can do pronation and supination. But then you get to the black one where I can barely move that at all. very strong. So again, work out with your own weight range, whatever you feel comfortable. But please always start light and control. And now, I will get into the video, and I hope you enjoy this. Warming up your muscles before you work out is important no matter what you're working on. But for me, when I'm getting ready to start my wrist and forearm, I will use tools within my organization to help me warm them up. Warming up is important. Obviously, you should know it'll help avoid potential injuries. It warms up the muscles. It gets them activated. So what I do is I take my nunchakus, because that's what we use in our organization, and I'll just take 5-10 minutes. You know, I'll do maybe 50 or 60 back spins, 50 or 60 forward spins, and then I'll do some reverse figure eights, and then I'll do some forward figure eights, and then I'll do some full range of motion, just so that I can warm up my body, warm up my muscles, and get prepared. If you don't have nunchakus and you have another tool that your organization uses, like bow staff or size, for example, you can certainly use your size. Anything that will help move and rotate your wrists, get them activated, get the blood flowing through them. And I want to use the tools in my organization so that not only am I warming up, but I can certainly continue the muscle memory of the particular weapon or tool that you're going to use. Anyway, warm up is very important. Just wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Okay, the first exercise in my routine is my wrist flexion. There's wrist flexion and then there's wrist extension. But for now, we're going to start with the wrist flexion because we're flexing the wrist, working up some muscles. As you can see, no matter what I do, I'm getting a different muscle group on each movement. So you need to work them all. I'm taking the band and I'm just going to stand on them, shoulder width apart. This is a pretty tight band, so I'll do 2 sets of 20. And I keep my elbows tucked to my sides. I do not use my biceps, and I'm not rolling the grip down into my fingers, because when you grip it down into your fingers, you take the pressure and tension off of your muscle. You want to completely just use the muscles and not compensate by letting it, you take all the stress off of here. So don't let go into your fingers. You do 20 of those, and then immediately take your weights. For now, I usually go 1 lap around the gym, but for now I'm just going to go back and forth. And this just gives you a little extra strength for gripping, because gripping is very important along with the flexion. I'll do another set, and then 1 more set of fireman's carry. And I'm going to move on to the next exercise. The next exercise we're going to do is wrist extension. We recently finished wrist flexion, but now we're using the opposite motion of the wrist. So I'm going to just use the same band, find an area above my head where I can do this. Again, as I mentioned, there's many different ways to achieve this, but for me, this is my routine. Keep my elbows into my sides, and I isolate my forearms and extend my wrists down. I keep my elbows into my sides, and I only isolate my forearms and my extenders. With this, I'll do 2 sets of 20. First, I'll do a set of 20. I'll stop. I'll do my fireman's carry or farmer's carry around the gym, and then I'll come back. I'll do another set of 20. Remember, don't allow the grips to come up into your fingers, because what you're doing is causing potential elbow pain. And you're taking the pressure and you're losing the gains that you can get by simply isolating this forearm muscle. When you let it release, you take the pressure off and you will realize less gains. Again, a set of 20, and then do your fireman's carry, and then we move on to the next exercise. All right. The next exercise we're going to do is for the ulnar deviation and the radial deviation. The ulnar bone is on the lower part of your forearm. That's how you would remember, under, ulnar, and the radial is at the top. There's many ways to achieve this, but my routine, because I have a sledgehammer, and it is effective because I can change the weight just by moving my hand. This is ulnar deviation. If I want more, I just move my hand down into there, and believe me when I tell you, the extra weight of moving your hand down will increase the intensity of the forearm workout. So, to perform these, I suggest again, get your hands close to the bar if you're not used to this, and you're simply going to squeeze tight on the handle, and you're just going to pull your pinky up towards the back of your wrist, and just nice and slow and controlled, do 20 of these. And once you finish your set of 20, switch to the opposite side, do another set of this 20, and then immediately grab your weights and walk around the dojo or the gym. If you can't go in a circle, just go back and forth. And as you get stronger, you certainly can progress the weights of your carry, because the carrying will build up that strength in the wrist that's required. Now, we've completed the ulnar deviation. Now, while we've got the sledgehammer, we simply turn it around. And instead of going backwards, we're going to do our radial deviation. We're going to push our pinky down and our wrist forward. Again, squeezing the handle tight, keeping your core strong. Focus through the movement and get your set of 20. Once you're done with that, again, as I mentioned, flip to the opposite side, 20, set it down, do your fireman's carry around the gym. Once you've completed that, you've done your ulnar deviation and your radial deviation. And now we're going to move on to the next exercise. All right, the next exercise I'm going to do is for supination and pronation. I went to physical therapy over the years for different injuries that I've had, and I remember them because my physical therapist told me to supinate, you're pretending that you have soup in your hand. So if you have soup, a cup of soup, it's not going to spill. So supination and pronation. So your supination, there are supinators in your bicep, but there's also supination in your forearms. So when you do this way, you're going to work intrinsic muscles that take you this way, and when you go this way, you're going to work intrinsic muscles that go that way. So what I do, and I have to be controlled and slow and steady on this. Again, I always keep my elbows bent to keep my biceps out of the motion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my pronation this way. I'm squeezing the hammer tight, and then I'm squeezing and I'm pulling this way. It may not seem like I'm doing much, but you can feel this. And if you do a set of 20, I'll go and do 20 on this side. In reality, you're only doing 10 pronation and 10 supination. So if you wanted to double it and go 1, 2, and up to 20, then do the opposite side the same way. Pronation, supination, slow and controlled. Keep your bicep out of it. Put it down. Grab your weights. Do your fireman's carry around the gym or in your room, wherever you can. Then come back and do one more set. And once you finish the second set on both sides, again, please remember, if you do this, the weight is doing the work. You do the work by squeezing your hands and letting that weight be felt in those forearms. That's my supination and pronation exercise. Now we're going to get on to the final phases of my forearm workout. The last thing I do in my wrist and forearm workout is working on my finger and grip strength. So basically what I'm going to do is just take whatever tool I want to use. I'm going to use the clamp for the weights, and I'm just going to do these to failure till I can't do anymore on this particular side. And then once I'm at failure, I release it about 80% of the way, and then I'll do my extension and my flexion. Maybe 5, 10, 15 of them to the point of failure. Do the same thing on the other side. To failure, release it 80%, up and down till you get to failure. Do your fireman's carries, come back, do one more set, and then basically you're done with your wrist and forearm workout. And now I'm going to show you some alternates to the wrist and forearm workout that we did previously. As I mentioned in the early part of the video, there are other things that you can do, and I'm going to show them right now. As we talked about, the THERABAND flex bars, which I use, and there's various thicknesses and weights, but I'm going to use the easiest one right now. I can do, remember, this is pronation, this is supination. So you can still do the pronation and supination right here. This is going to be your supination, and this is going to be your pronation. So you can do these to failure, and consider this part of the supination and pronation that we did with the small hammer. You can use these for that. You can also use these for your flexion and your extension. So flexion, flexion, and then I let go, and just keep doing that to failure. And if you have this, you don't need any other tools. You can do 2 of the exercises right with a band. And then for extension, you just go the other way. So this THERABAND flex bars are a great tool to have in your gym bag. If you're home and you don't have all the bands and the sledgehammer and the hammers, this works great. Another tool that I use when I want to change my routine on a little bit is, of course, the old rope and stick. So what I've done is, you see, I have a 3-inch PVC bar, and I wrapped a belt around it, tied a small weight, and the bigger the grip, the tougher it is to move, and it gives you much more resistance on your fingers. And here, again, you can do flexion and extension, the same thing we did with the flex bar. And I typically like to keep my my elbows bent. I don't want to do it out here, although there is a benefit to this as well. And I will, like I mentioned, have links in the description of a couple of other people who have science-based information to show which moves are exactly right for you. So again, just a couple of options. Hopefully this was a great video for you. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Please enjoy your day. Mike Bonanno from World Arts.